Is our faith based on hearsay? Or are we witnesses of what we personally know because we have seen and heard? You remember last week, if you were here, how John was full of confidence in the desert, baptizing all those who came to confess their sins, even chastising Pharisees and Sadducees who came to have a look at what was going on. But in this passage, John's circumstances have now changed. His outspokenness has led to the disfavor of those in charge. He's now languishing in prison, wondering if all that he went through was worthwhile. He endured a lot in the desert. He sacrificed a lot. But now, he's not sure anymore. Not only him, he has a circle of disciples around him. And they look to their leader, their master, and they too begin to wonder, if he's unsure, then what about us? If he doubts, what about those who look to him for guidance and encouragement? And so it is this community, John and his disciples, who are now wondering if Jesus is actually the Messiah. And so John sends his disciples to Jesus. He's in prison, he can't go himself, with the question, are you the one that we are to expect, or should we look for someone else? Jesus' answer to this question is really quite interesting, but it's very important. What would we expect Jesus to tell them? Are you the one that we expect is the question? Yes, of course it's me. John didn't make a mistake. Go back and tell him it's all right. Yeah, it's me. Off you go. But instead, Jesus says, you go back and tell John what you have seen and heard, what you see and hear. It's not a direct answer to the question, but it's a very important one. It's important for two reasons. The first one, when one speaks about what one has seen and heard, one becomes a witness, because it's not second-hand information. Repeating what someone else has told me to go and tell somebody else is hearsay. In a court, hearsay is not admitted as evidence. A judge will ask, did you see what happened? Did you hear what was said? And if the answer is yes, then you are a witness. And so when Jesus tells John's disciples to go back to John and to tell him what you see and hear, go and tell him what you see and hear, they will be speaking to John as witnesses of what they have personally seen and heard. And then Jesus goes on to point out to them the fruit of his ministry. He says to them, look what you see. The blind see, the deaf hear, the lame walk. The disciples of John then return to him and tell him what they have seen and heard. They repeat what they have seen and heard. The blind see, the deaf hear, the lame walk, the dead are raised. We cannot be sure if John's disciples saw any real significance in the list of what they were witnessing to John. But we can be sure that John grasped its significance, because Jesus said of John, he is a prophet. And as a prophet, John would have been steeped in the scriptures. Hearing the things that his disciples then told him that they were witnessing, John would have remembered the words of the prophet Isaiah, which we read just now. When the Lord is at work, the blind will see, the deaf will hear, the lame will walk, people will be raised from the dead. And so, without anyone having to tell him, John would have been able to conclude for himself that Jesus was indeed the Messiah. He could put it all together and he could see it. No one would have to tell him. He would realize it on his own. He had not made a mistake. His sacrifices and endurance were not in vain. The first aspect of this passage that challenges us is to ask ourselves, on what is our faith based? On what is our belief in the saving power and grace of our Lord Jesus? What is it based on? Is it based on hearsay, what other people tell us? Or have we personally seen and heard Jesus Christ amongst us? Can we speak from personal experience? When we speak of the Christian faith, are we people who repeat hearsay, or are we able to witness of what we have personally experienced, seen and heard?